Essentially, I must describe it this way, albeit in the wake of the terrible earthquake in Italy today, reported today. Gaza is an earthquake scene. If you imagine what an earthquake would look like, that's what Gaza looks like. The difference being that if it had been an earthquake, all the governments of the world would be airlifting aid to the victims of the earthquake and the means of rebuilding the country which had been destroyed. But because the victims in this case were only Palestinians, whose blood is cheaper than anybody else's blood, the names of whose children when they're killed are recorded only on the poster at the back of the room, but no newscaster, no journalist anywhere knows the name of a single Palestinian victim of any of these aggressions. Because the perpetrators of this earthquake were human beings rather than natural forces, and because they were Israeli, not only is there no aid being airlifted by the governments of the world, but the siege which has been imposed on the Palestinians in Gaza for no other reason than that they exercised their democratic right to elect a government which Washington and London and Tel Aviv didn't like, has been tightened rather than loosened. You see, if your aid is redirected through Oja, it never arrives. At Oja and in the sports complex in Al-Arish, there is a mountain, an Everest of aid sent from all over the world, which will never reach Gaza, whilst people inside are suffering hardships, which it's painful for me to recount to you because I know it will be difficult for you to hear. The people in Gaza are starving. I don't mean that they're poor, I mean that they're starving. I saw with my own eyes, every morning that I was there, women, always women, with their daughters, clambering over garbage heaps to find food to eat. 80% of the population of Gaza are refugees, and therefore the international community, so-called, has a legal responsibility to feed them. The UNRWA is legally obliged to make sure that none of these refugees go hungry. But Israel is allowing in only 25 trucks per day and only 2.5 days per week. This means 62 trucks per week, whilst Palestine needs 250 trucks per day. So the UNRWA doesn't have the food to give the 80% it's legally obliged to feed. And the 20% who are not refugees, who are not fed by the UNRWA, have nothing at all. People are eating from the garbage heaps in Palestine. And I must tell you that the most common refrain told to me by almost every Palestinian I spoke to was, "Wain al-Arab?" Where are the Arabs? One little girl said to me, "Where is this Arab world they teach us about in schools? Where is this Ummah they tell us about in the mosques? Why did they leave us alone? Why did they leave us alone?" This is what their hearts, which are breaking, are saying to you and to the Arabs throughout the world. They're not asking, why did France not come to our rescue? They're not asking, why did South Korea not send us anything? They're asking, where are the Arabs? And above all, they're asking, how come an Arab country, Egypt of all countries, the beating heart of the Arab world, how come Egypt is starving us? We are ready to face the Israelis, they said. We are ready to fight them, we are ready to die under their bombs. But how can an Arab country lock the doors on us so that our wounded people can't go over? And when they do, they're interrogated in their beds by Egyptian security forcing them to tell them where are the Hamas leaders, where are the fighters, in between the medical treatment they're receiving. Why, they say, are there doctors 50 yards away on the other side of the Rafah border who want to come to the rescue of their colleagues in the hospitals, which are operating, and I mean literally operating, in the dark, by candlelight. The biggest need in Gaza today is generators, because Israel controls the fuel and won't allow it to enter. Some of which fuel is sold to Israel at cheap prices by Egypt. Egypt sells fuel to Israel which refuses to allow it to enter the Gaza Strip. These hospitals, none of them have electricity all the time. Some of them have electricity none of the time. And as you said, some of the hospitals are themselves destroyed, hit by missiles and by bombs. The situation is catastrophic, not because of the attack, but because of the siege. And the siege is taking place behind a blanket of silence. At least when they were being bombed, it was on the news. Now nobody's thinking or talking about Gaza, while the people are slowly dying as a result of this Arab siege, for that's what it is. Nobody can force Egypt to keep this door locked. If Egypt decided to open this door, nobody could punish her for doing so. Unless Egypt is not a country at all, unless the country of Jamal Abdel Nasser is no longer a country, they have every right to open this gate. They could put international observers on the border to make sure no weapons were coming in, if that's what they wanted. Although my view is, why should the Palestinian people be the only people who are not allowed to have weapons? But they could do that. We have a situation where you can take medicine through Rafah, but not food. So you can give them an aspirin to cure the headache caused by the starvation, because you won't allow food to cross. I had to drive through more than 100 doctors who had been waiting more than a month to enter Gaza, to relieve the exhausted doctors and nurses who are trying to cope in these unbelievable conditions, literally unbelievable conditions, but who are being refused permission to cross by Egypt. On my way out, this is something you have to know. I was finished, really. I couldn't take any more. Somebody asked me in Rafah itself, please come and see this damaged mosque. I saw so many damaged buildings I didn't want to go. They forced me to go. This is not 100 yards from the Egyptian border. I found a mosque. It's beautiful blue dome, intact but upside down. You could see the pictures on our website, vivapalestina.org. And worse for me, in the grounds of the mosque, the ruins of a destroyed orphanage, which was an orphanage for 400 Palestinian orphans. It's not enough to be an orphan in Gaza. Your orphanage can be destroyed, not by one, but by 7 missiles. So not an accident, not a stray missile. 7 missiles destroyed this mosque and this orphanage. The children, by the way, those that survived, are now, right now, being taught their lessons sitting on a sheet amongst this rubble in the sun. Not even a tent to shade them from the sun. But the difference in this wreckage from the other wreckage is that the pieces of the missiles were all still there, and I picked them up, every single one, and every single one had written on it, "Made in the United States of America." This catastrophe is being paid for by you, not by Rockefeller, not by AIG, not by the president, by you. Your taxes paid for these missiles which smashed through this orphanage. And you have to do something about this.